Hello everyone. In this video, we learn some theory about international trade. So first let us understand, why do we get gains from trade? Why do countries trade anyways? First is we get gains from specialization. That simply means that you are doing things that you are good at doing. So if let us say you are good at a particular subject, so if you study just that subject, you will be able to score better and better, let us say, marks in that particular subject. But if you are forced to study all the subjects, then your performance in cumulatively in all the subjects might not be as good as it would have been had you been studying only your favorite subject. So this is just basically the gains from specialization. So you produce that product in which you have a specialization, in which you have an advantage. Then gains from exploiting economies of scale. If you're producing only for your, let us say, country, you can only produce as much as the demand is there. So if in India the demand for cars is 100 and there's only one company catering to India, maximum it can produce is 100 cars. But if we also start exporting, we could add maybe another 100 from all the countries others combined. So now we can produce 200 cars in that company, which means that we are achieving economies of scale, which obviously is a gain, because with that you achieve efficiency and you achieve more profits. Gains from increased competition. It is a settled economic theory that with competition there is more efficiency in the system, which leads to more gains. So whenever you have more trade, you are exposing your companies of the country from competition from all the other companies of all the other countries. So increased competition implies increased efficiency and gains. Gains from access to a broader variety. So all these, the first 3 points were from the perspective of the suppliers. But now from the perspective of the buyer, if I am a buyer and if my country allows imports, then I get more brands, more variety of products. So that is a gain from the consumer's point of view. Similarly, gains from innovation and technology transfer. This is a gain from both supplier and demand side. Because on the supply side, the companies get better technology and they can produce more efficiently. While on the demand side, the consumers can be benefited from themselves by using newer and newer technology. So the first theory of economic trade was on absolute advantage. So that simply meant if country A can produce more roses than country B with the same number of employees per hour, and country B can produce more number of computers than country A with the same number of employees, then country A has an absolute advantage in producing roses and country B has an absolute advantage in producing computers. So simply speaking, let us say country A has 100 labor and country B also has 100 labor. Using that, country A can produce 2 roses while country B can only produce 1 rose. Similarly, country A can produce 1 computer but country B can produce 2 computers. So obviously it makes sense for country A to produce the 2 roses and for country B to produce 2 computers, and then they can trade. So net you have overall in the whole world economy, you have more products. That is the theory of absolute advantage. But this theory got discredited at a later stage because this meant that if there was a country which did better than its trading partner in all products, then there would not be any cause for trading. But this was found to be not true. I'll just explain this further in subsequent slides. So comparative advantage, which is the next theory, said that a country does not have to be better at producing something than its trading partners to benefit from trade. So it is sufficient that it is relatively more efficient than its trading partners. So I'll just explain this with an example. So let us say there are 2 countries A and B, and country A can produce 5 million roses or 200 computers. Similarly, using all the resources it has. Similarly, country B can produce 8 million roses or 1000 computers. Now, if we look at from the perspective of absolute advantage theory, then obviously country B is more efficient in producing roses as well as in producing computers. So this would mean that country B should just produce whatever it wants and there is no point in trading with country A if we look at absolute advantage. Now let us look at what the theory of comparative advantage says. First of all, let's just try to to compare apples with apples. Let us try to bring 1000 in the column of computers for country A, so that in both the country A and country B we'll have 1000 each. So we multiply both roses and computers by a factor of 5. This is just so that we can compare. Once we do that, you can see that country A effectively can produce 25 million roses and 1000 computers. So this is just mathematical jugglery. So this means, this is to show that for 1000 computers produced in country A, it could have produced 25 million roses. And in country B, for 1000 computers produced, it can produce 8 million roses. So what does this mean? This basically means that country B has an absolute advantage in production of both goods, but the opportunity cost of 1000 computers in country B is 8 million roses. So if it foregoes to produce 1000 computers, country B will be able to produce 8 million roses, while country A, if it foregoes 1000 computers, it can produce 25 million roses. So obviously country B is relatively better at producing roses than country B. So this means country B has a comparative advantage in computers and country A has a comparative advantage in roses. So because for the same number of computers, country A can produce more roses, which means it has a comparative advantage in computers. So country A is relatively better than country B in producing roses. So hence country A should produce roses. So just to reiterate, if we look at the theory of absolute advantage, country B is better than country A in producing both roses and computers. But as far as comparative advantage is concerned, country B has a comparative advantage in computers and country A has a comparative advantage in producing roses. Now this mathematical jugglery that we did, you can do it anyway. You just need to get the same factor in any of the any of the 2 columns out of 4 in the same, like either computers or roses. So what I could have done is, instead of multiplying computers by a factor of 5 in country A, I could have divided country B country B's computers by a factor of 5 and roses also. So we would have got 200 computers in country B and 8 by 5 roses in million roses in country B. So anyway you can make the comparison. Now these were the traditional theories of trade. Then came the latest modern theories of international trade, and the most famous of that is HECKSCHER model. So the HECKSCHER model says that specialization actually comes from differences in factor endowments. So countries will export products that use their abundant and low cost factors of production and import products that use the country's scarce factors. So HECKSCHER actually distinguished in the factors of production. Till now, both in absolute and comparative advantage of international trade, what the assumption was that there is only one factor of production, which is labor, and the productivity is different. So, or because of other factors like technology, the countries are able to produce different amounts of different goods. But in HECKSCHER they added a factor of production, let us say capital. So now what HECKSCHER says is that if a country is labor abundant, it should produce labor abundant goods and export labor abundant goods and import capital abundant goods. Similarly, if a country is capital abundant, it should export capital abundant goods. Now abundance is defined in terms of cost. So a factor of production which is cheaper in a particular country, that country is said to have an abundance of that factor. So if in India labor is cheaper than in USA, it means India is a labor abundant country. And in USA you would actually find that capital is cheaper than capital in India. So US is a capital abundant country. Why do I say that capital is cheaper in US than in India? The return to labor is wages, return to capital is interest rate. As you would know that the interest rates in US are much lower than the interest rates in India. This is just as an aside, just for your general knowledge. So this is the HECKSCHER model. So I just explained this to you. So capital abundant countries should specialize in the production of capital intensive goods and similarly export those, and vice versa for a labor abundant country. So Ricardian models like the comparative advantage, I just told you that these rely on the differences in productivity of labor between countries, and this is said to cause the productive differences which leads to gain from trade. So differences in productivity are usually explained by differences in technology. But in HECKSCHER model, there are differences in labor skills, physical capital, land or any other factors of production between countries which can cause productive differences. So in HECKSCHER model, you can have as many factors of production as you desire. The model will just keep getting more and more complicated. So this explains what is the reason why different countries trade. But why do similar countries trade? So, which means that India and USA have a reason to trade because India can, let us say, export labor-intensive products, and India can export labor-intensive products, and USA can export capital-intensive products. But why do USA and Germany trade? They are both capital-abundant countries. They are both producing similar kind of goods. So why do they not just trade with, let us say, developing countries like India? Or similarly, why is it that USA is also manufacturing cars and selling it to Germany, and Germany is also manufacturing cars and selling it to USA? So that again was a conundrum which the economists faced. So that is when they came up with other newer theories of intra-industry trade. So intra-industry trade says that the reason why such kind of trade exists is because of economies of scale, and also because the consumers demand variety. So even though USA can produce all the cars it needs, but the consumers in USA would like to have German-made cars because of certain, let us say, various reasons like safety or other things which the German automobiles are known for. So like Volkswagen, etc. So this is the new theory of intra-industry trade. So if USA is producing only a particular model of car, it can achieve economies of scale in that particular model. So let us say any other make of car, US made car that you can think of. Similarly, the other point of view is that the consumers will get more variety, and hence this kind of trade would exist, and this would lead to efficiency for car manufacturers of both the countries. So this is basically a very basic introduction to the theories of economic trade. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you liked it. Comments and suggestions are welcome. Thank you.